Ravens Nation, good evening. It is 5:06 Eastern on Monday, September 16th, the day after, of course, the collapse, the fourth quarter collapse against the Las Vegas Raiders. 26-23 was the final for the first time since 2015. Baltimore drops to 0-2 to kickstart a season. This episode is brought to you by my friends at Primary Residential Mortgage. I'm glad you're here because if you're searching for reasons to be optimistic, for reasons to be hopeful, for reasons to be encouraged, undrafted rookie from last year at the running back position, Keaton Mitchell, perhaps gave you at least one reason to be all of those things. And that is because for the first time since last year's season-ending knee injury, again on December 17th in Jacksonville, of course, he's on the physically unable to perform list as a result. He is in the middle of his ongoing recovery. But for the first time, Keaton has given a pretty darn good update. He tweeted out just over an hour ago that it's a blessing to see 20 plus miles an hour again. Hashtag in due time. Thank you. With the hourglass, as if to say, I'll be back soon. And I'll tell you what, this is something that we probably all needed to see given what's taken place over the last 24 hours. An epic collapse, one that was really inexplicable. Inexcusable probably is the better word. John Harbaugh just wrapped up his day after press conference. I do have some takeaways in just a second coming up, but I wanted to begin with, again, some encouraging news, and that is somebody who will be the lightning to Derrick Henry's thunder, right? It'll be a duo that we probably won't see in the same backfield healthy until the second half of the season. Let's just hope that by the second half of the season, the Ravens are still in it because they're going at a pace that will have them irrelevant by that point if they don't get it together soon. And obviously, it only gets more difficult when you have that first place schedule and you go on the road to Dallas coming up next weekend. You then host the Buffalo Bills in front of a primetime audience on Sunday Night Football the following weekend. And then you go to Cincinnati, who played the Chiefs awfully dang tough, as they always do, last night to kickstart October. That's the next 3 weeks for the Ravens. And you hate to say that their season sort of hangs in the balance of the next few weeks, but a week 3 game against Dallas feels as if it's about as must-win as you can possibly get for a mid-September game. But that's the situation that the Ravens find themselves in. And while it's supposed to be on paper a cakewalk down the stretch, you have to get to that cakewalk first. And they haven't given us a whole lot of confidence so far through 2 weeks that they're capable of doing so. So the big news is, again, after last year's knee injury, Keaton Mitchell says he has now clocked at 20 plus miles an hour again. A big key mark here in his recovery. And the Ravens need all they can get. They need some variety in their run game. And that was something that was discussed quite a bit, particularly given some of the issues at offensive line. Brian Baldinger, I thought, did a great job of breaking down not only some of the miscues and the lack of assignment and lack of stability within the right-hand side of that line, but how one specific player had himself a day against that right side of the line, and that was Max Crosby. Listen to Baldy.
From the opening drive of this game, Max Crosby was relentless. The condor right here is going to beat the right tackle right here. And down goes Lamar. Bam. All right. That's always a good way to start the game. Opening drive, you get yourself a sack. All right. Now it's just, but it's all phases. The run game was relentless. Like Derrick Henry, like he defeats this play before it starts. They were supposed to trap Max Crosby. Voorhees never saw him. He was a blur in the backfield. He runs into Derrick Henry. Like Derrick Henry's a small little guy. You watch him right here, like he just times it. There's no way that Rosenstein, the right tackle, can keep him out. Down goes Henry. I mean, it's just one relentless play after another. Now he widens because Ricard comes over there. All right? Now, Ricard's going to be wide open in the flat. But you can't throw the ball over the Condors. You can't throw it over. Like, look at where Ricard is. There's nobody there. But that ball got batted backwards. All right? There we go. Now, You want to like run a screen against him? All right, that's Zay Flowers. All right, first round pick, wide receiver. Who catches him from behind? Like that's how forced fumbles happen too. Max takes him down from behind. All right, 11 yards down the field. And then you get this right here. Here comes the trap. He splits it. They grab him, hold him, the whole thing. Down goes Derrick Henry. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they try to do to him. Like you watch all these plays. Like you watch this right here. You get a 2-sack day and a victory on the road. That plane ride home is fun.
Did you see that? Watch 77 there. I know that Daniel's got two different assignments on this specific play, but watch the lateral quickness or lack thereof. The lack of recovery. Watch this. 77.
Plays. Like you watch this right here. You get a 2-sack day and a victory on the road. That plane ride home is fun. He beats Falele. Down goes Lamar. Bam, that hurts.
And not only does he beat him, Falele didn't even have a chance. He got blown up there. He was barely even touched. Nearly untouched on his way to Lamar. Free reign.
But that feels good to Max. Oh, yeah, that's a good plane ride home. Here we go. Now, you get this right here. Like, I'm not sure what Mark Andrews is supposed to do, but he beats him. And Lamar's feels it coming, and he makes an errant throw. All right, here we go. It's one play after another. Life of Max, all right? You get chipped. The back hits you. The tackle hits you. The tight end hits you. All right, that's just the life of Max Crosby. We know that. He knows that. It doesn't stop him. 14 seconds to go in the game. You just keep chasing. Like, okay, he gets chipped. You just keep coming. Lamar gets away. You make sure he throws that ball away. The Condor was relentless all day long. The Raiders earned that win in the Charm City. That was the best player on the field, Max Crosby.
Far and away, the best player on the field was Max Crosby, and I understand that, right? And I certainly can't expect Daniel Fa'alele, a developmental player at guard, somebody who was thrust into this position, labeled as an experiment, and now an every week starter. I can't expect him to hang and bang with Max Crosby. That's just not fair. What we should be able to expect is sound coaching decisions from a roster management standpoint, and that we have not gotten that. And that's something that we should have seen coming when Eric DeCosta a couple Fridays ago, right before the season began, not only sort of teased potential hiccups down the line, but also said in a year from now, right, paraphrasing, but in a year from now, the line it will be where it needs to be given the rebuild, given the retooling that we've decided to do collectively as an organization. Here's part of what Harbs had to say earlier as well, and from the beat community. Quote, giving up a fourth quarter lead is never unacceptable. It should not happen. He also said that the coaches and players all take accountability for it. You do it when you don't play consistent football. When you have a 10-point lead, it's on all of us to maintain that lead. He pointed to the punt team struggles as an example. And again, quote, giving up a fourth quarter lead is never acceptable. A couple of those quotes coming from his 2:30 press conference earlier this afternoon. Why is it relevant? Well, of course it's unacceptable. But unfortunately, it's been somewhat of a norm around these parts over the last several years. Over the last 4 seasons, to be exact, according to this statistic provided by NFL on CBS, the Ravens have the most losses, 10 to be exact, with a 7+ point lead in the fourth quarter, again, over the last 4 years. And since the start of last season, this is a true media sports stat. The Ravens' quarter-by-quarter point margin, look at where they are in the fourth, -4. It is a downhill climb, a significant one when it comes to first quarter production and efficiency versus crunch time. -4 in the fourth quarter since the start of last season. That's just not going to cut it. And that is a trend that starts and ends with the head coach. That's the hard truth. Don't let anybody else tell you differently. This is a stain on John Harbaugh's resume. And while he mentioned a few things about playmaking that needs to happen that ultimately goes towards that number, right, of 10 losses, since what? Since 2021, with when at least a 7-point lead was had in the fourth quarter. While that is a collective statistic and a lot goes into that, that ultimately falls on the head coach. And when you are a double-digit category over the last 4 years, that's the type of stuff that is a borderline fireable offense when it becomes a trend. It is a trend. And that's where the Ravens find themselves right now, searching for answers in terms of why they get conservative when they've had leads. We can all think of games that come to mind where they have been comfortably sitting in the driver's seat when it comes to fourth quarter leads. And if you think about where the Ravens were yesterday, to the point where they demoralized the Raiders with that direct snap, that wildcat trickery with Lamar lined up on the outside, Derrick Henry direct snap, and he says, I refuse to be denied. Pat Ricard and company ensure that he got across the plane and into the end zone. And you go up by 10 points and you're thinking to yourself, now it's go time. This is why we brought 22 in. When we have a comfortable lead in the fourth quarter, we bring him in to be a finisher. And that's not what happened. The Ravens were brutal on third down. Matter of fact, we probably haven't talked about this statistic enough. The fact that they were 3 for 11 on third down efficiency. That's terrible. They had 11 penalties that negated 109 yards. It's just inexcusable. And I know there were a couple, particularly the Brandon Stevens one with Devontae Adams. Gene Steratore himself, the CBS rules analyst, said that he felt like it was a mutual hand-fighting type thing, didn't like the call. And I know the Justin Madubuike one was not a face mask, so there's a couple in there that certainly were tic-tac. But the reality is 11 of them, even take those two that I just mentioned and put them aside, that's still 9 total penalties. Vegas is not a good team. They were more disciplined than the Ravens on Sunday. They were penalized 3 times for just 15 yards. It's not good enough. It's not good enough, and the pedal should have been pressed when you were up 10. Run the football, use Derrick Henry, use the disguise, use the mesh point, dominate time of possession, and get the hell out of there with a win. It's mind-boggling. More takeaways from John Harbaugh's press conference, and we'll get you guys involved as well in just a second. But first, this episode is brought to you by my friends at Primary Residential Mortgage. And I just wanted to remind you that this coming Sunday, September 22nd, leading up to Ravens-Cowboys, which is a road game in Dallas, I'm going to be hosting a pregame live stream from 1 to 3:30 in Timonium at Michael's Cafe. Really looking forward to this. It is free when you register using the link that I have included in the show notes below. There's going to be raffles and a ton of fun being had. You can join the show live and in person. And I hope some of you come on out to, again, Michael's Cafe in Timonium, Maryland, for a extended pregame show. I typically don't go 2.5 hours, but we will on Sunday, and there'll be plenty to talk about, of course. So if you'd like to join me, come on out. And again, click that link that's included in the show notes below if you'd like to register for free. What else should we discuss here? How about Harbs in terms of the starting guards, Andrew Voorhees and Daniel Fa'alele? Quote, we're just too inconsistent. When you talk about the offensive line, I think that's a fair characterization. He said they are randomly inconsistent up front. He also referred to it again as a fair evaluation in terms of being inconsistent. He also added that goes for the entire Ravens team, but I'm not sure there's been a unit that's been more inconsistent and more untimely inconsistent than the Ravens offensive line. I think about 2 easy adjustments that can be made. And you know what I compare it to? The fact that Malik Harrison really struggled in the middle part of the field, and that's why Rashee Rice on opening night, in part, was able to torch the Ravens. What was an adjustment that was made? Malik didn't spend as much time on the field as an inside backer. And Trenton Simpson got an increase in playing time, so much so he became a 3-down linebacker. He played 100% of the snaps and received the team's third best run defense grade, according to PFF, with a 74.3 grade. That was an easy fix coming off the season opener, right? You want to know what the next easy fix is? Making Roger Rosengarten your full-time starter at right tackle, benching Daniel Fa'alele. And by the way, we've got some breaking Ravens news. And it's not what you would expect. So let's do a screen share here. I'm a little bit surprised by this. Don't let me lose my train of thought here in terms of what I think the two easy game adjustments are, okay? Do not let me lose that thought. But the Ravens are bringing in a former Raven. And let's do this on the fly. Put on my producer hat for you. Y'all remember Chris Wormley? He's a veteran defensive lineman who is now joining Baltimore's practice squad. They worked him out today. He was a third-round pick back in 2017. And now, again, as Mike Garafolo says from NFL Network, he returns to the franchise that drafted him. I also saw they worked out another defensive lineman today. And I believe they ended up filling the practice squad because Tyler Huntley was picked up by Miami. Okay, it wasn't a defensive lineman. Zaire Mitchell-Payton, who's a tight end, was signed to the practice squad. I believe that was a corresponding move. Okay, they did work out a defensive lineman, a former Buffalo Bill, Gable Stevenson. He worked out for the Ravens today. He's continuing his attempt to transition from wrestling to the NFL, so somewhat of a project there. But basically, the Ravens are bringing in a tight end to replace Tyler Huntley, who leaves the practice squad and signs with Miami. Some big decisions, tough decisions loom there down for the Dolphins, who obviously have a lot of questions remaining with Tua's future. But as of right now, the Ravens are trying to beef up their defensive lineman room with more depth. And Chris Wormley, who I believe hasn't he been in Pittsburgh recently, if I'm not mistaken? Pretty sure he was in Pittsburgh, wasn't he? Let me just check his page real quick. Tough to keep up with all these former Ravens. Yeah, okay. He was in Pittsburgh from 20 to 2022, and he spent last year with the Carolina Panthers. So Chris Wormley, curious to see if that means that there's some sort of injury that we aren't aware of on the defensive line. More help with the practice squad. Not sure. What do you guys think in the live chat of that move? Be curious to see what that makes. Or what comes of that. But to get back to my thought before we had a little bit of breaking news, got to love that when we're live. An easy adjustment that was made after week one was what? Making Trenton Simpson an every down backer, right? Because Malik Harrison just struggled. An easy adjustment from week 2 to week 3 based on what we've seen will be giving Roger Rosengarten a full-time role at right tackle, 1, and 2, benching Daniel Fa'alele and either moving Patrick McCary over to starting right guard or going to Ben Cleveland or going to Josh Jones. Do something. Do something because the film, what did I say? Actually, I was actually kind of, you guys will like this. Maybe this is corny. But today I was at Harris Teeter in the morning, kind of settling back in after a couple months out, getting groceries and whatnot. And apparently, self-checkout, there's now cameras everywhere in the Canton Harris Teeter above you. And I had an item that the machine was telling me did not register, and I put it in my grocery bag to go. But I could have sworn it registered. I heard it register. But because the machine didn't think it registered, all of a sudden, it starts beeping at me and yelling at me and won't let me continue to check out items, right? So it's like 7 a.m. I got up early to go after Pilates. I'm giving you like every breakdown of my life. I don't know why. I'm rambling. The end of the story is one of the attendants comes over to me and starts like clicking buttons and whatnot. And of course, you feel guilty even though it definitely registered. So I'm like, oh, sorry about that. Appreciate the help. She's like, oh no, no worries. And I just blurted out when all of a sudden up on the screen the overhead camera angle comes up, and I'm looking at me from above, and it showed that I clearly did scan it, but it was just instantly brought up, and I was looking at myself on the screen, and I turned to her and I go, "The eye in the sky never lies." And she had no clue what I meant by it. That's a long way of saying the eye in the sky never lies, whether it's the all 22, whether it's Baldy's breakdown, whether it's just game clips in real time. Daniel Fa'alele is not ready to be a starting guard in this league. And the more the Ravens throw him out there, the more they are risking not only Lamar Jackson's health, but really the entire state of this offensive line. That's the reality of it. Thanks for hanging with me for that analogy. I know you're probably cringing at home. All right. More to discuss here from John Harbaugh's press conference. And it is about the aforementioned Roger Rosengarten. He said he felt that Roger took a step forward this week. We all saw it, whether it was his one-on-one matchup and matchups with Max Crosby. The one that comes to mind first is the dancing that he did, the strength that he displayed, the lateral quickness that was on full display in that one-on-one rep in no man's land with Max Crosby, which led to an extension of a play by Lamar and then sort of a street ball completion with Zay Flowers. Harb said that it's possible that they could abandon the rotation, but he wants to keep working both guys in there, meaning he's still, at least as of today, this afternoon, he's still kind of non-committal in terms of whether or not he's choosing between McCary and Rosengarten. It's not going to get any easier. Micah Parsons is next week, and we know what happens after that. Hendrickson and Hubbard and all these dudes in Cincinnati. It does not get any easier. And Roger showed me, not only did he take a step forward, but he is your best option at right tackle right now. I know some of you are probably like, oh boy, like those are live bullets and you're asking a lot of him. What better option do they have right now than to allow this guy to essentially have a live internship? I mean, that's kind of how it is. And I think he's shown you that kind of growth here in a 2 short week time. And you got to have a short memory too in terms of what he showed us on that opening snap of his NFL career against Chris Jones. Think about how far he's come just in 2 weeks since that miscue. Those are my thoughts on Roger. And how can you talk about the offensive line? How can you talk about Roger Rosengarten without talking about a guy that would sure make sense to be just left of him, Ben Cleveland? It almost makes too much sense. And John Harbaugh, for the first time, I think in a while, actually gave an extended answer on the Ben Cleveland conversation. And as Sarah transcribed, he did make his thoughts very clear. Quote, if Ben had earned the job at right guard, he would be the starting right guard. You look at the tape, and he didn't beat out Daniel Fa'alele or anybody. Did not mince words whatsoever here. I think Ben is a good player. I like Ben. I want Ben to take the next step. He's in his 4th year. Ben knows what he needs to do. If he wants playing time, he knows how he needs to play and how he needs to practice when he gets that chance. So our evaluation right now is that Daniel outplayed Ben. Just facts, straight up, matter of fact. If I see that Ben is playing better than Daniel, then Ben will be the starting guard. He practices every day, just like I tell all the guys, show me. Whoa. So that kind of confirms what we've all sort of believed, whether it's practice habits, whether it's a internal thing, whether it's a character thing, whatever it is. Clearly, Ben has not performed well enough when it counts in practice, because what we've seen in terms of within the last year or so, how he's performed when a Kevin Zeitler goes down, I think we can all probably agree that he looked serviceable. Not a Pro Bowler by any stretch of the imagination, but he's serviceable, and he's somebody who can absolutely be a stable force for you. And so to hear that based on what we've seen from Faalele, and you're trying to, and he's telling us that Faalele clearly has been beat out, that's like stunning to me. And it doesn't quite match up at all. I mean, you see you see what he had to say here. You look at the tape, and he didn't beat out Daniel or anybody. If he wants playing time, he knows how he needs to play and how he needs to practice when he gets that chance. If I see that Ben is playing better than Daniel, then Ben will be the starting guard. I don't think we're going to see Ben anytime soon, unless something changes. Oof. Goodness. Deshaun says, why is he on the roster then? Bimo Du says, why is he on the team if he's not ready for the field? That's poor management. And Harbaugh being the immature person he has shown himself to be through the years. Dre Dog says, what tape he didn't let the man play? I think he's referring to practice habits. That's my thought. Guest lines are open. You can call in via the link that I just dropped in the live chat. Ian says it's a load of crap. That's why. Jeremy says, I think Harbs has an issue with him for sure. Sebastian says maybe Ben shows up late every day and Harbs just doesn't want to see him play. Who knows? Brian Spar says, unlike last week, Harbaugh did not rule out making a change in line. He didn't rule that out, but he certainly was. It was a sort of a non-answer. Remember, he was defiant about it. He had the audacity to be defiant to local reporters when they pressed him on it after week 1. I was irked by that. I don't know about you. Ashley says, can't beat anybody at a certain position if you don't play them at that position. So I guess he's not wrong. I see what you said there. 100 proof. Bobby, have you ever considered coaching? Have I ever considered coaching? I'll coach my kids later on in life for sure, just like Sarah does. I'm looking forward to that too. Who knows when the hell that's going to be, though. Although I am going on a date Thursday night. I'll throw you that. Dre Dog says, Bobby ain't got no kids, but he's giving dad jokes. Yeah, I'm going to be, I guess I'm aging myself, Dre, aren't I? Okay, guest lines are open. We'll continue takeaways from the press conference in just a second related to the challenging conversation and the decision-making that went into that. By the way, it's not too late to revisit conversations with Jerry Rossberg. What do you think? They were reportedly in talks this offseason about a game management staff position for the former special teams coordinator in Baltimore, and it fell through. I'd be getting Jerry back on the line. Let's get him on line 1, matter of fact, as soon as possible. They need to get that shored up. All right, Ron and then Judah. Let's get this thing going. The lines are open. Good to be with you guys. The day after, I know probably some of you don't want to be with me given the circumstances, but it is early. They got to get it going because a Dallas team is going to be playing a home game on Sunday, and they're going to be pissed off based on what happened last week or just yesterday against the Saints. One of the more surprising stories in the league, the way Derek Carr's slinging it around there, and the New Orleans Saints are firing on all cylinders. All right. I believe this is a first-time caller. Ron, is that the case?
Yes, it is. Not
Great
a first-time listener. I've been listening to you since the beginning, and before I, mention what I was going to mention about the Ravens, just thank you, Bobby. You're doing such an awesome job. We love you, and you're a great alternative to, I'll just say, local radio that does not do it well. I'm going to leave it there. All right. About the Ravens, I've heard since I was a kid, you win and lose games in the trenches. That has been proven throughout the past. We know that our trenches offensively are terrible right now. And I agree with you 100%. There needs to be some changes, even if we're taking a chance, even if we're putting Ben out there for a series or two, just see what happens. Maybe it sparks him a little bit. But I do believe that that's where it begins and ends, because Lamar just doesn't have the time. And obviously, Derek does not have the lanes to run through.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like we kind of likened it yesterday to at the end of the year when you have a quarterback stat like interceptions that will be heavily monitored and studied and whatnot. There needs to be context to that number. And so all of a sudden, several months from now down the lane, right down the line, when you look at Lamar's final statistic for interceptions after the year, you got to have a little asterisk there. And there should be -1 on whatever that final number comes through, for example, because of what Bateman did yesterday. And so
Well,
you know what I mean?
about that though, this is where I might disagree with Sarah on this. She was very adamant about saying that it was Bateman, it was in his hands and out of his hands. I would say it differently. We had a 10-point lead. We were driving to go up potentially through what's that, 3 scores. If we got a touchdown out of it, we would have been way up ahead. Why are we throwing the ball so much? That goes back to the earlier comment of running. So Lamar could have checked out of something like that, or maybe thrown a safer pass, because look, it may have hit his hands, but there were 2 defenders within 5 yards. And that's a dangerous throw in any circumstance. So maybe I'm not blaming it all on Lamar. I'm just saying I just don't know that we could blame that all on Bateman, because it was a tight window throw, and he did not handle it fine, but it was a tight window throw that we didn't need to do. Run the ball, throw it away, live
I
another
appreciate
day.
I appreciate the call, Ron. We're going to keep the guest lines moving. All right. Thank you for calling in.
All right, man.
Appreciate you. And
Take care.
I tell you what, too, the I just have a hard time fully leaning into that because we all saw that replay. Bateman's got to have that. He has got to have it. And we can talk about, run pass ratio all we want. Lamar put that thing right in his breadbasket. And it's crazy. The Rashad Bateman experience is so hot and cold. He had a tremendous grab on the left-hand side just a few plays earlier at some point in the game that kept that offense moving. And you're thinking to yourself, man, does he have a great pair of hands? And we all know what happened in the fourth quarter against Kansas City, that unbelievably acrobatic catch that he found a way to bring in. And so it really is hot and cold for Bateman. But that play itself that resulted in interception, in my opinion, that's fully on Bate. Judah, let's get you in here. Welcome in. Sorry to be talking to you under these circumstances, but what you got for me today?
Yeah, man. So I'm just kind of wrapping my head around what happened. I want to talk briefly about, the game. We all saw what happened. Again, I think John Harbaugh wasted our timeouts. He called a lot of challenges on things that we didn't even need to challenge. Like, I don't know if you heard. I mean, I'm pretty sure you heard the press conference today. And his excuse, his reasoning was that, well, I couldn't tell if the guy's feet was in, so I took a chance because, if we get that, then, it's going to help us out big. But if we don't get it, it may hurt us later with the timeout. Well, my thing is, we had the lead. Why are you taking chances when we have the lead? I don't understand why John Harbaugh gets so desperate when we have the lead. You know what I mean? I mean, the logic isn't there. There's no reason to be desperate or taking chances when we have the lead. With that being said, I don't want to focus on this game. I want to focus on going forward. I do believe that we should. I don't know what's going on with Tez Walker, but I'd much rather see
I
what
do.
Tez Walker can do. What is it?
I know what's going on.
What is it?
He ain't NFL ready.
I mean, you believe that? I mean,
Hell
do
yeah.
you know that? Do you?
Hell yeah.
I mean,
Tez
so
is not NFL ready, and that's the hard truth. And he's not a first rounder, but he is a fourth rounder. He was banged up with the ribs throughout training camp, particularly down the latter half. But he is not NFL ready, is what is my understanding of it.
Wow.
Yep.
And I know we have somebody else on. I just want to say this before we get off to the logic and play call. And so when we have the lead, right, what I noticed about this team is that when we're behind, they don't mind running Lamar, letting Lamar be Superman, rush and taking hits, right? I actually think that it'll be more beneficial to call design plays for Lamar to run the ball when we have the lead. That way we can keep the chains moving and we can burn the clock. I just think it's backwards that we run him at the wrong moments.
Well, you saw what happened when they didn't run him at all, barely, right? on Sunday, coming off a game in which, what was the whole conversation off Kansas City? It was, man, that's not sustainable. Well, it's led to a lot of wins for Lamar, and that's the unfortunate part. They got to find a way, especially with Derrick Henry in your backfield, to be able to flourish offensively without running Lamar double-digit carries. So appreciate you, man. Thank you for calling in.
All right, man.
Oh, I know our next guest is going to be fired up today. Mr. Texas, we're coming down your way this upcoming weekend. That's right. I have Horace Torres. He's been mixing it up in the live chat today. He just can't help himself. I can't imagine what he's got for me today. Well, let's bring him in. The guest lines are open. Good to see you.
Jeez, what's going on, Bobby? How you feeling today, man?
What you got for me?
We could talk about the game yesterday, but I just want to say before we go into Dallas, they coming in. I wish I could be there for the game, but them tickets is expensive. But I don't expect it to be an easy game. I honestly think these next two games is really going to decide our season. Because if we lose two games in a row, 0 and 4 is a tough hole to climb out of, man. It is, man. I don't know if Lamar can overcome so much things that's going on with the team right now. I believe in Lamar. I pick him twice on Sunday, man. So it ain't that much doubt. I'm not hitting the panic button yet, but man, we got our work cut out for us this year, man, for sure.
This is what you got right here. This is what's coming up over the next few weeks. Perhaps the season hangs in the balance over these next three games. You've got at Dallas, Sunday night against Buffalo, at Bengals. It's a crucial few weeks. This is a first-place schedule. We know what the strength of schedule is all about. We know the degree of difficulty that comes with winning your division. And we know the target that they've had on their back throughout the Lamar era with a couple, obviously, number one seeds to go along with it, a two-time MVP, everything that comes with it. But bottom line is they've come out totally flat to begin this season. And if they don't get it together and they don't make some easy adjustments, again, there are some easy adjustments to be made between now and Saturday when they leave for Dallas. It's got to happen. Got to happen.
Man. One of the things I will say, though, Lamar is pretty good against NFC teams, so we got that going for us. So, if we come out with a win, I'll be happy. But if we lose, man, it just raises the bar. And I agree with you too, Bobby, about the Devontae Walker thing. I've been telling people since he was drafted. I've never heard. I haven't been in tune with college football within the last 5 years, but prior to then, I could tell you about a lot of players. But the game hasn't changed so much. To me, the kids have gotten more relaxed, if you will. But I've never heard of too many UNC players making it on the next level in the NFL like that. Sometimes people make it up out that stigma sometimes, like Kyle. I didn't think players from Notre Dame was all that to boast about. I could name a few that didn't pan out well for the Ravens, but Kyle broke the mold. So I don't want to put that jacket on Tez too much, but in my opinion, going off what you said, Bobby, I'm not surprised one bit.
No,
I'm not surprised one bit.
I don't think we're going to really see him at all this year, to be honest with you. And that might be a part of a bigger picture discussion about the 2024 draft class, because so far it's been really, really ugly outside of Nate and Roger. So anyway, I appreciate you. Enjoy the coverage leading up to this week, and should be a good one on Sunday.
That's right, man. Bobby, keep doing your thing, man.
See you, brother. Talk to you. Guest lines are open. There's links that I've included in the live chat. Would love for you guys to join us. Kendrick, we got you on deck. Ravenkin, we got you coming up afterwards. But real quick, more takeaways from John Harbaugh's press conference related to the decision-making that went into throwing the red challenge flag. He was quoted for saying as follows earlier: if you want to have a winning percentage in challenges, you just don't challenge stuff. If you have one that you should have challenged that you don't challenge, it doesn't get counted against your record. But I don't think that way. I'm not worried about the record that someone might be printing about what your challenge record is. I'm trying to think about the opportunity in the game to see if we can have a chance to use the challenge to our advantage to try to win the game. Okay, great. You know what you should really be thinking about, though? Clock management, crunch time decision-making. Sure could have used that challenge at the end of the first half. Sure could have used that extra timeout at the end of the first half. Sure could have used that extra timeout in the game's final seconds when you're trying to Hail Mary it. By the way, Lamar definitely had a lane to potentially get to 6, but whatever. I'm not even going to talk about that because they never should have been there in the first place. Cooper Kupp expected to miss multiple weeks with an ankle injury. Breaking news on ESPN. The other Ravens breaking news for those of you who are just tuning in is Chris Wormley's been signed to the practice squad, former Raven, defensive lineman. That was an infuriating answer, to be honest with you, related to the channel. The Ravens should be on the phone with Jerry Rossberg right now. Call him up, meet his number, his asking price, and get him back in this system. I got all the respect in the world for Daniel Stern, the analytics guru, who's now, by the way, an assistant quarterbacks coach. So he's working from like front office. I think he might be making a transition from front office analytical type roles to actually maybe personnel in football. See what that's all about. Former Yale grad. But maybe he's being spread thin. Bring Rossberg back. This has been an organizational flaw for years. Kendrick, back to the guest lines we go. Manuel, Dre, you guys are on deck as well. Appreciate you guys for being with me today. And we got another first-time caller, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. I've been watching for a bit and had to jump in on it. So kind of two things. Number one, I feel like Harbaugh has this great way of taking responsibility but passing the buck at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't understand how he does it. It's super impressive. I'm not going to lie to you, but like you were saying, at some point, you have to take control. It's your team. The decision making on the like that beneath the surface stuff, like you said, clock management, when to take a challenge. It's mind boggling. And also, I feel like Isaiah Likely could be utilized a lot more. Maybe as like a large slot guy. He just seems so shifty and movey for a big guy. I feel like we just don't have that possession receiver as a big guy. Keon Coleman, I feel like, would have been a great pickup for us.
Ask Likely what it was like chipping Max Crosby. Wonder how that was.
Yeah, that's like, why are we doing that at the end of the day? Why?
Well, they're trying to give the right side. I think at that point they were just trying to give any kind of help they possibly could to the right-hand side. Even Mark got blown up on that one rep. So, look, Max's reality is when you see Chris Jones, Crosby, and friggin' Micah Parsons in 3 weeks' time, it's going to be brutal for most offensive lines.
Gonna be heavy.
But when you're as vulnerable as the Ravens are on the right-hand side right now, it's
doing nothing.
It magnifies the issue, and that's sort of the reality of it.
100%. Agree completely.
Yeah. Thanks for calling in, bro.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Talk to you. Oh, guest lines are open today, and everybody wants to get a chat in. Ravens lose 26-23, by the way, as we all know by now, to the Raiders yesterday. First time since 2015. They are now 0-2. Before we get back to the guest lines, more takeaways from the press conference. We all saw this late night, perhaps doom scrolling before his head hit the pillow. Zay Flowers retweeting a fan's critique of the Ravens' offensive attack in the second half. And this guy wrote that the second week in a row that Zay has had big first halves, and they stopped getting him the ball in the second. Zay decided to repost that. John Harbaugh was asked about it and completely, this was a non-answer for the most part. Kyle asked Harbs about the retweet and if Zay had expressed any kind of frustration to him or the coaching staff. And Harb says, quote, "Not that I'm aware of it. No, Zay's been great. Had great conversations with Zay. I'm not aware of any social media stuff." Well, you're going to want to make yourself aware because your number one wide receiver, who, by the way, on most NFL teams probably is not a number one. That's no disrespect to Zay. I think that just says more about the Ravens' investment in the position or misses that they've taken at that position. Your number one doesn't seem to be too pleased here through 2 weeks. Now, Sarah and I had a little bit of a back and forth during our lunch hour live stream today regarding whether or not this was a sign that the locker room could start to be lost. I didn't view it that way. I mean, maybe the doors cracked slightly open for that conversation, but I'm just not really willing to go there. I think this is more of a competitive spirit type of thing. Obviously, frustrations after inexplicable. I mean, it's explainable, but an inexcusable loss. Let's be clear. That was an inexcusable loss. And when you see these numbers like this too that Ryan put together, it just makes it unfathomable. The Ravens outgained the Chiefs 452 to 353. Significant margin. They outgained the Raiders 383 to 260. They have forced just as many turnovers as they've given up, and they're sitting here at 0-2. Unbelievable. Manuel, let's get you on here. We'll go down to Mexico City. Dre will be right with you in just a bit. Looks like you're Ubering out there. How you doing, dude? What you got for me today?
I got something real quick.
Yeah.
Because I gotta go for a bike. Real quick, if Harbaugh's saying that Cleveland ain't ready, I think Cleveland's in a doghouse. Clearly, I mean, tape don't lie. Let's just be honest. Harbs, I'm sorry, but hey, even before Lamar in the Flacco era, after the Super Bowl, you still had those critical mistakes. I mean, are we forgetting the divisional round against the Patriots 2 times? That 14-point lead and then vanished? That's something that he has to do an introspect, or EDC has to, hey, I know we're buddies, but I'm the general manager. You're the head coach. It's time for you to actually change it up a bit. It's not working.
Let me interject. If you're Steve Bisciotti, are you ready for an in-season dismissal?
If it gets too bad, on the sense of way that no changes, yeah.
Here's where I'm at. I don't think, unless there is something that's just way out of left field where it is abundantly clear that the locker room's been lost, I don't think an in-season firing happens.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't think that's the way that Steve does business.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think, to be honest with you, in Steve's eyes, I don't even think Harbs is on the hot seat.
Yeah. Well, one last thing before I jump. I understand Say's frustrations, but Lamar has to interject either Todd's decisions of play, or they just have to, you know what, like that Colts game, Lamar calling his own plays with his own guys. I think Lamar has to take a little bit more responsibility on that. But, hey, that's it. I got to go.
Thanks for the call, dude.
See you.
Talk to you later. Our guest lines are open, and they are active today. We all know what we're talking about here. A couple more updates before we bring in Dre. Rave Kingdom, you're on deck after that. Live chat access link is available to you if you guys would like to call in. Monday Night Football, Philly and Atlanta tonight. Philly is a wild sports town. I'm just seeing some videos right now. Oh, my God, that place is nuts. You got to love Philly. Harb said that he's hopeful that Nate Wiggins is going to return to practice this week. We all know that he showed up on that Friday injury report with a concussion. That was in addition to a neck injury suffered in last week's car accident. So hopefully that's a good sign of things to come for Nate, because they are a better team with his youthfulness out there. Dre, you've been mixing it up in the live chat the last 24 hours. I know you're ready. What you got for me today?
What's up, man? Can you hear me okay?
Oh, as always.
All right. Yeah, man. Just a couple quick things. So I think the Ravens should take a page out of what we saw the Raiders do, where they also had an offensive line controversy, right? And the coach came out and told the reporter, if the player doesn't get his stuff together, he will not get playing time. And so I really believe that the Ravens should kind of pitch that same thing with Falele, whether it's whether we're putting Ben Cleveland there or doing I totally agree with Patrick McCarry going in at right guard and Roger as right tackle, and say to Daniel, hey, look, Daniel, look at these mistakes, man. You are costing us games. Just be honest with them. And if you want your starting role back, you must get it together. Until then, we're going to go with McCarry and Roger, because Lamar can't sustain the next 3 weeks of people shooting straight down the gap and blasting him. Like, that's not going to do well with his longevity. And I think as far as like the controversy as far as Harbaugh, I just think Harbaugh with the Ravens is just, to me, where Andy Reid was with Philadelphia. They have come to a point where we're getting to the playoffs, where we're having good regular seasons, but we can't get to the next level. So I guarantee if Harbaugh leaves the Ravens, within 3 years, he'll get a Super Bowl. It's just I think that his passiveness with his coordinators is biting him in the butt. Because there's no way that, going back to last year's KC game, you don't say to your coordinator, hey, look, I don't care what play you call, but you're going to run the ball. Period, point blank. If you can't go to Todd Monken as John Harbaugh and say that, then that's a major issue. If you can't go to your defensive coordinator and say, hey, I know you're just getting started, Zach, but hey, look, let's try to do something different with the wide receivers. Devontae Adams. Let's try to bracket him. Let's try to, do something different. Like, if you can't do that as the head coach to your coordinators, then that's why we get into these games where it's just like, okay, you see the game falling apart. Where do you grab the horse by the collar and yank it back in as Harbaugh?
Well, one area that I mentioned a minute ago, to give Zach a little bit of credit, even though the matchup that they asked Brandon Stevens for was just lofty. I mean, they asked way too much of Brandon Stevens with Devontae.
Absolutely.
He had all that he can handle on Sunday against an all-pro in one of the game's really all-time greats. Canton, it will be his next stop once his career's over. But, as Ryan tweeted here, it only took one game for Trenton to become a 3-down linebacker. We remember that was a vulnerable part of the field that Mahomes and Rashee Rice exploited in that season opener. Trenton then played 100% of the snaps in week 2. And, of course, the third best run defense grade was given to him at 74.3. So, nice adjustment there, an easy adjustment. Take Malik off, put Trent on, and now next up is, I think, the offensive side of the ball that has to be adjusted on the line, which is an easy one. Give Roger trial by fire here, trial by error in a sense, a live internship in real time at right tackle, and either move McCary one spot to the left and bench Fa'alele, give Ben a chance, or go to freaking Josh Jones for all I care.
Exactly. You brought Josh Jones. Yeah. Josh Jones was that swing guy. As it was almost like having two Patrick McCarrys on the team, because Josh Jones has also played every single offensive line position. So are you meaning to tell me that Josh Jones, 26 years old, you brought him in and he cannot perform at or above the level of a Daniel Falele at this point? I mean, when you're missing stunts that bad, man, it's just not working.
We should have taken Eric DeCosta's comments at face value and more seriously from a couple weeks ago when he referred to what could be coming as potential hiccups. I mean, talk about foreshadowing. I'm trying to find the specific quote. I remember Sarah actually transcribed it here because I would love to replay this.
But why would Eric go into a season knowing that your offensive line this year is not complete? Why do that? Like, if Ben Cleveland was not the answer, if Daniel Falele had looked bad from all reports the entire offseason, everything we heard, I mean, what positivity did we hear about Daniel Falele? It was all that he moved slow. He had no lateral quickness. Like, if we knew this, why would Eric not address it before the season started?
There it is. This was on the 29th of August, right before the season began, the Friday before. EDC was asked point blank about his offensive line. Quote, there's still a little bit of an unknown because we haven't played as a unit in games. Linderbaum getting hurt early on at camp wasn't ideal. We're very excited to get him back. Across the board, we made the decision to start to build up the offensive line with young players. Unfortunately, in a salary cap league, you can't build a team with veterans at every position. Excited about Roger, Here we go. We might have a couple hiccups along the way, but we've started to build from the bottom up. And I think a year from now, we'll be in a great place. Boy, if we knew now.
That is insane.
Well, we didn't know then. right? Oh, my Lord.
That is insane.
Yeah, that's the.
Bobby, real quick before.
That quote right there, Dre, is aging like fine wine in the worst of ways.
Absolutely. Bobby, real quick before I hop, when you do the Michaels thing, are you going straight home after that? Are you going to go like the high tops and watch the game or something, or what you doing?
Oh, I wish. Sarah and I have a really
Okay.
streamlined process of how we handle game days. So what I'll do
Okay.
is from 1 to 3:30, we'll be at Mike. This is here, let me just pull up the graphics so that I can promote this properly because I am excited about it. I don't typically do 2+ hours worth of pregame coverage, so it's an exception
Yeah.
this weekend. And by the way, C-Max and William, you guys are on deck. We'll be right to you in just a second here. So anyway, 1 to 3:30 coming up on Sunday before the 4:25 kick. I'll be at Michael's in Timonium. It's free to register. It's free to pop out. It's going to be a great time. But what I have to do though is I might hang around for a couple minutes after, just as I break down all my equipment and whatnot. But I got to race back down to Canton so that I can ensure, everything gets set up and I get back into my studio so that Sarah and I can be in the Google Doc, be in the slides. We just have a very specific process of how we get ready for the post game show. So.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Well, that sounds good, man. I appreciate you as always, Bobby, and man, go Ravens. Let's get it.
Of course. Thanks, Dre. Appreciate it.
All right. Later.
Would love for you guys to join me for that one. It's coming up on Sunday. And what I'll do is, if you'd like, you can register right now, and I'll throw the link in the live chat on the way. All right, C-Max, let's get it. Live chat's open. William, you're on deck after C-Max. Rave Kingdom, if you can turn that camera on, we can get you on afterwards as well. The guest lines are open. Glad you guys are with me. Over 600 of you concurrently watching right now. And Philly is lit up for Monday Night Football. Jason Kelsey out there getting after it. Wonder how many beers deep he is right now. C-Max, welcome in, brother. How are you?
I'm good, Bobby. How are you?
Good. What you got for me today?
No, it was interesting. I was watching a video and somebody made a comment, and they're basically saying we're at the end of our Brian Billick and Matt Stover era, because like towards the end of their careers and tenures, like they were falling off, and you saw like Matt Stover wasn't the same Stover, so that means like Justin Tucker isn't the same Tucker. And I know Tucker's still good and all, but obviously no one can stay the best forever. And now Tucker, I'm missing plus 50-yard field goals. And the Harbs just making bad decisions with challenge flags and personnel decisions. So now it's like, do we go through that mode where it's like where Andy Reid had his fall off with the Eagles? Like he always making the playoffs and whatnot, but never getting over that hump. When is enough? I feel like. So like you never know like what exactly is going to happen with the season, and being contingent on the offensive line and how EDC prepared for the season. It's just so many things are just spiraling, but hopefully, like, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and this 2-game losing streak, well, technically 3-game losing streak if you include the AFC Championship, like, can like really like force us to like have our back against the wall, and we're really gonna learn about this team come Sunday because the Cowboys need this win too. So it's like it's a make or break for both teams. So it's just interesting to see what team we're going to see on Sunday.
Oh, you better believe Dallas needs it. They just got flat out graveyard stomped on. I mean, that was just ridiculous. Maybe says more about where the Saints are at right now, flying around than anything else. But I think you make a couple really good points there with Stover and Billick analogies. Again, I would be stunned if an in-season change is made. And if there is, regardless of whether it's in season or once this one finishes up, it will be equally as stinging because of who they let walk out the door this offseason.
Oh,
and
gosh,
that's Mike
man.
Mack.
And seeing it's crazy. You see Mike do his thing in Seattle. You're even seeing Greg Roman and the Ravens West doing their thing in Los Angeles, and it's just like, what can we get right? Like everyone else is getting it right, but like, why is it not us? So it's tough. But this Sunday is a big game, 4:00 slot, America's Game of the Week. Brady's calling it, so it's gonna be some fireworks at AT&T Stadium. There's gonna be some fireworks.
I forgot. Yeah, it's the lead. I forgot about that. Oh, maybe I should reach out to Fox. Hey, can we get Tom on the show?
Imagine, boy, the numbers for the vault will go up.
Listen, I've been as any guest booker does, right? I have been declined more times than I can count over the years. I might just out of spite, just straight up reach the Fox PR contacts this week and have the audacity to actually send that email out and see if I get a response.
Hey, you miss every shot you don't take.
Hey, hey, they don't call me Trigger Trosset for no reason, baby. Come on.
TT Trigger Trust.
That's right. That's right. That was my father's college nickname. That's hysterical. I have a sweatshirt. It's a worn down sweatshirt, raggy, just a shitty looking sweatshirt. It says Trigger Trosset on the back. I'll have to bring that out one day.
You
I
got
appreciate you, man.
No, I got you, T. I got you, Bobby.
All right. Later. Appreciate the call. That's great stuff there. William, you're on deck. Live chat. Just so you know, if you guys want to call in, there is a link to do so right here. Would love to get a thought or two from you. Glad you guys are here. We're 1 hour in. We got Eagles and Falcons on tonight, Monday Night Football, outside Lincoln Financial Field right now. What a backdrop that is, boy. Philly is fired up tonight. You better believe it. William, welcome in, brother. How are you?
Hey, how's it going? Am I coming in clear?
Yes, sir. What you got for me?
All right. Well, the obvious, our offense wasn't doing too good. Henry didn't really seem like he got on a really good start outside that 30-yard run. And the offensive line issues that we've already seen. Obviously, first thing be first, we have to fix that line situation, because if Max Crosby was able to do what he was able to do, now we got to deal with Micah Parsons coming around that. They're literally looking at, like, Micah's probably like salivating right now, looking at like Makari and looking at like Falele, and it's just like that's just not going to work well. So there's something's going to be.
Said it best. Marcus Spears earlier today, he said it best. He was like, this is stat padding opportunities for guys. They look at the roster, they look at the tape, and they're like you said, they're salivating because it's a stat padding opportunity. If teams are looking like the Ravens at that as an opportunity like that, you're in rough shape.
Yeah, and let's not forget, we still have to go against Garrett and the Browns 2 times this year. Yeah, that's another thing. And I mean, I would like to also, consider, like, on the wide receiver side, once again, Zay has been solid for us, even though he's like the youngest guy right now, like starting. But Bateman, I feel like he's still kind of 50-50 right now. Like, he kind of showed up and then disappeared during the game. Nelson Aguilar, that one pass where the sidelines, I feel like we need a big body receiver for that type of stuff, because with a lot of our speed guys, they just can't get up there and just, like, get over top of the cornerback like they need to. Like, if he could have been able to have that the ability to just kind of jump up and get over that, because I feel like he would have probably got a PI, because the guy wasn't even looking at the ball at all. He was just looking at his hands. So
the guy that you're describing, one, obviously you and I both know is not on the roster, and two, they've been trying to find that guy since Anquan left.
I know, that's why it's so hard. Like, wide receiver is like one of the hardest things since the history of this team to try to figure out. I don't know why.
They
but
couldn't find it at the position, so they had to go find a tight end that could qualify, and that's Isaiah.
That's another thing. That brings me to another point. Isaiah has been really, I think, blasting off. Maybe it's because teams are so used to Andrews and they're just like double teaming him and by default. But, like, I really see him possibly making it a hard choice between him and Andrews come contract time if necessary, because he's been so more agile, quicker. He reminds me of Dixon when we drafted him. You remember Dixon?
Ed. Yeah, I met him during the playoff run last year. He came on the show. Super nice guy.
Yes, he reminds me of him athletically, and I feel like he would probably be at this point even a better fit than Andrews to an extent, not just because of the injuries and age and all that stuff, but he's just a lot more, like I said, wide receiver, like a lot more capable. If you put him in the slot, put him at the X and in the red zone, he could be a lot more dangerous. Now, the good part I think we could take away from this Oakland game was how stout our defense was. Travis Jones was a monster in the middle. Like,
you're saying up front, because there was a lot of issues in the second and third levels.
Oh yeah. But like at the same time, that stuff can get
correct.
Yeah. I'm saying that stuff can get fixed.
There's no issues up front.
Yeah.
Now you get to the second and third levels. To be quite honest with you, Roquan has looked slow in the first couple. I hate saying that, but Roquan has looked slow and old in the first couple weeks, and maybe, dare I say, even out of shape. And then the secondary has been gashed.
Yes, I've seen that happen, but I feel like with that happening, I've also seen the counterpart of that of the Adafe Owe. He's been picking up this year. He got those sacks, especially that first on the first play with the strip. I feel like with that team, if that front line with Matabike doing what he does as well, if they can keep going and actually apply that pressure, hey, everybody has an off season. Some people have off games. Some people have an off half a season. I feel like Roquan will see that and he'll motivate himself to kind of, get a little better. They're still in the beginning of the season. I feel like the DBs will also improve over time. Hopefully, Nate will get back on the field, and we still have, our really good safety, and I feel like a lot of that will eventually, get better, especially if we have a lot more pressure. So I think the defense will, show up a little bit more. And on top of that, they'll be a lot more. If we don't put them in really bad positions and we're not keeping them on the field a lot and we're not like, getting a lot of 3-and-outs, they'll probably help with them being slow and being gassed and because there was a lot of 3-and-outs during that game on the offensive side. So when you have to deal with that and then you're having to constantly be out on the field, that's almost like a strategy for the other team that helps them take advantage of them.
Thanks for the call, dude. Appreciate you.
No problem.
Talk to you soon. And by the way, I saw some, including Evan, we'll get you on in a second here, asking what the Keaton news was. I covered it in the first couple minutes, but just in case you guys are popping on now, Keaton with a significant personal update on his health and his ongoing recovery from last year's knee injury. That was, remember, December 17th against Jacksonville. For the first time since, as he tweeted, he hits 20 plus miles an hour on the radar gun. Gotta love that. And he called it a blessing to see it again. Hashtag in due time with an hourglass, as if to say, I will be back soon. And the lightning to Derrick Henry's thunderbolt. We won't see it probably till the second half of the season, but a good sign of things to come, hopefully, for Baltimore's former undrafted rookie running back. Back to the guest lines we go. You guys are active tonight. Over 600 of you concurrently watching today's live stream. Like the video if you're enjoying it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when I'm dropping my live content. I get the sense you're probably running hot today, my friend. What you got?
I'm good right now. I'm looking forward to Monday Night Football, but I wanted to call for two reasons.
Are you seeing this scene in Philly right now? I know
No,
everybody
I
feels a
haven't.
certain type of way about Philly, and I get it. The fans are, well, I
I
won't even
love
put
it.
a label
I
on it.
love it.
I love it too. But Philly tonight for Monday Night Football, you put it up against anything in terms of environment. The
Oh, of
place is
course.
just unbelievable.
Yeah, I've got a lot of friends and family up there, so they're kind of my
Yep.
NFC team if I had to pick one. But anyway, I guess the reason I called was to talk about the defense. But first, I'll get into the Keaton Mitchell thing because I actually heard something interesting on Nick Wright and Broussard's show, which I know gets a lot of hate in here, but they do drop some gems sometimes. And they were talking about the Derrick Henry issues, and I think I kind of agree with one way to kind of subvert how predictable we are with Derrick Henry versus Justice Hill is just maybe it's just take Justice Hill and sit him on the bench for a game or two and just have Derrick Henry back there the entire game and start running those play action fakes and even some of those screen and dump offs go to Henry. I mean, he more than proved he was capable of it last week with I think he had a 15-yard reception and I think that would go a long way and just kind of mitigating the predictableness of where we are right now as an offense.
I think they might be low key trying to conserve him. I know Harbs came out and said the whole 30 plus carry statement that had everybody talking.
But conserving for what? I mean, if you're not winning games, you're not even going to make the playoffs. Then,
well, I was going to say that was more of a topic that was relevant or valid coming off a, inches difference in Kansas City. Now it's just all right, fuck that. You got to start winning. Excuse my French.
Right.
But you know what I mean? So the reality is if they don't have him in January and they have Keaton, great, but you're probably not going to get to where you want to go without Derrick. And so
yeah.
That would be my only pushback.
Yeah, it's. I guess my thought is the same thing with Roger Rosengard. Is just these guys got to get their snaps in, and they got to get comfortable with this offense, and they got to do it quickly. And the only way to do that is to get them their reps. It's not having them disappear in the fourth quarter. It's not splitting reps with. And I love Justice Hill, but let's be honest here. He's not a great running back. He's a great shifty guy that can catch some passes out of the backfield. But that's kind of where it starts and where it ends. He can run some draws, but like I said, I think the balance needs to shift. It's kind of at 50-50 right now. I think it needs to be closer to 80-20 with Derrick Henry back there like 80% of the time. Anyway, as far as the defense is concerned, I think they're catching a lot of strays right now, and I think some of that is warranted. But I do want to point out that on nearly all of these scoring drives our opponents get, the defense is playing with their hands tied behind the back because the offense has given up short fields, or special teams has given up short fields. I mean, I think 3 of the 5 or 6 scoring drives the Raiders scored yesterday were all either the interception, the shanked punt, the missed field goal. So that's 3 right there. And then the week before that, we had the same thing with the fumble. I think there was a missed field goal in there, and there was a missed 4th down. So it's, three drives every game. This defense is being asked to start at the 50-yard line and against offenses that have threats. So
think about the most crucial one of all of them that you just mentioned, the shank punt, which was uncharacteristic from Jordan, but he was having a horrific game. That obviously magnified it. And so a 24-yard punt, which is negated to 19 because of the Hallman penalty, all of a sudden you're giving, with a couple minutes left, you're giving Vegas you're handing it to him on a platter starting at your own 43. What do you expect to happen? I don't care if you're one-dimensional or not. If you're using if you're giving them that kind of field position, anybody, I don't care if you're Gardner Minshew or not. And by the way, some of the disrespect within the fan base, whether it was joking or not leading into the game, enough with it. Gardner has gone back. I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
Minshew has gone back-to-back years in your home turf, one of which was your home opener, on a day that you were honoring 2 fallen legends in your organization, and Joe D and Jacoby, come in as a journeyman guy who was with a completely different organization a year ago and beat you again straight up. It's just not
with no running game. With no running game.
With no running game. Now he had did Jonathan Taylor play last year?
Not against us, he wasn't.
He wasn't?
Not against us, but he got healthy in the middle of the season. I think because we played them week 3, I think there was even still contract things going on that point last year when we played them. But, I mean, I think they had, Zach? They had some guy who filled in and was kind of a stud. But
was it Moss?
I think it might have been Zach Moss. But this year, they got 17 yards rushing, 27 yards rushing against us?
27.
So they were one-dimensional, and even still, and this is where I'm saying, like, yes, the defense does need to improve in the secondary. I think some of those critiques are warranted. But they shut down the run completely, and that's super encouraging. And I know it's against a team that has, through 2 weeks, shown that they really can't run the ball. But I'm encouraged by our defense. And to be honest, I'm also encouraged by the positive things I've seen from our offense. I think most of us are on the same page where we're just, a Ben Cleveland getting some playing time or a clicking moment for Rosengarten away from actually seeing something. But once those things happen, the coaches still got to do their part, and they still got to call a cohesive game, and they've got to be the ones to set the tone for what our identity is. Not Lamar, not Derrick Henry. That falls on Harbaugh, Monken, and even Zach Orr to a degree. So that's kind of all I got for you today.
Good to see you again, dude. Appreciate the call.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Michael and Bob the Elder, thank you both for believing in what I'm building. This is your monthly shout out because of the support that you give me through Patreon. It's appreciated and obviously goes towards this daily content grind that is in the content world. So thank you both. And if you guys are interested in joining the Bobby Baltimore Patreon community, you can do so by clicking on the link that I have included in the show notes below. It's super easy, and you can join it for as little as $1.99 a month. If you don't want to do so through the monthly installment plan, you can obviously hit me up in other areas as well, like Instagram or Twitter at Bobby Baltimore. I am now back on Facebook as well. Good to be back on there after having my account deactivated around 50,000 followers back in December. So I would love for you to like the page and follow me over there. And again, Venmo, Cash App, if you want to throw a couple donations around to go towards the daily effort. Appreciate you guys. And thanks for popping by. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when I'm dropping my daily Ravens content. Sarah and I will be back with you with a Ravens Lunch Hour live stream coming up tomorrow. Thanks to Primary Residential Mortgage for sponsoring this episode. Would love to see you guys out at my in-person pregame live stream coming up on Sunday from 1 to 3:30 before the Dallas game. And that is in Timonium, Maryland at Michael's Cafe. Later, guys. Appreciate you.